It's Ion Franchising Friday, and I have an amazing hot brand, really the first of its kind. So, first there was Apple, then there was Tesla, and this is a franchise tech disruptor. They're looking to be the first worldwide home technology, home automation brand. This is really exciting. Hagan Kappler is the CEO, co founder of Daisy, and Gavin Lantzy is the franchise guru, franchise sales and success.
Up next,
In fact, we think that this is the most important, service in the home.
You went from seed to Series C in 18 months. What do you attribute all this rapid growth to?
The funding that we've raised has actually also gone to building out the infrastructure and support for our franchisees.
this episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Be here.
I am
Yeah, thanks so
super-
much. What a nice introduction. Wow.
I am super excited. You deserve it. So, what's broken in the home automation industry, Hagan, and how is Daisy fixing it?
Yeah, great question. And of course, anytime there's something broken, huge opportunity. And I think there's a few things. So what we saw was, from a customer perspective, the average home has 22 connected devices today. Yet folks are more overwhelmed and frustrated than ever with their devices. Kids are trying to do homework, from their computers at home. We're trying to do this podcast, at least I think Gavin and I are doing it from home. Like, our work depends on it. At night, when the day is done, I'm going to try to, play my Taylor Swift from speakers in my ceiling. A lot of our customers instead just flip on Alexa from just like a tiny, not as effective speaker. And so where we think that there ought to be more support, for clients with all of this technology. And in fact, we think that this is the most important, service in the home. A lot of members of our team come from home services, pest control, home cleaning, HVAC, plumbing. There are all kinds of services. I have a cleaning lady who comes to my home every week. I depend on her. I have 4 little kids. I have a guy who comes and mows the lawn. That's my husband's area, and he, I think, depends on that guy. Yet why don't we have, a tech guy who's showing up to make sure that the home is running more smoothly, that we have things to make sure we're entertained, that it's not a source of frustration, that the home is beautiful, that there's conveniences. And so that's one area that we feel like, one, it's not all working, it's causing frustration when it's set up, and then there's no one to help us and keep us kind of, not only make sure it works, but technology is always changing, it's always evolving, and it would be helpful to have someone sort of steward us through that, like keep us updated, talk to us through how these things evolve. And then also families change, right? My kids, when they were little, needed blackout shades to make sure they slept through the night, anything possible, right? I'd pay anything to keep them asleep. Now I'm trying to get those teenagers up and out of bed. So if I have a shade that will, be a little bit more transparent, that would be great. But I also want to keep them home with their friends, and so having a media center that's fun and making our house the place to be, right? So our needs are evolving, and so making sure that we've got someone who continues to come around to meet those needs is really important. So I think what's broken is, one, literally the tech is kind of constantly breaking, and then 2, just not having someone around to service.
So, what's the Gavin story? How did you two meet?
We got introduced actually by a gentleman by the name Gordon Van Zuyden, who was my mentor getting into this business. I spent some years growing a franchise brand and a house painting company, so it was my first kind of introduction to franchising through college and beyond. And my dad is the one that started a home automation company here in Colorado back in 2004. Gordon was instrumental in my dad's growth and success. My dad was an engineer, heavy into the technology, and was trying to learn the model, learn the business and things like that. And when I exited the painting company, was able to kind of come underneath his wing and just learn about this business and this model. And Gordon was instrumental in that. And Gordon ran a company called Cyber Manor in Los Gatos, California, which was one of the first acquisitions that Hagan and Dion made early in 2024. So they were one of the, adding Gordon to kind of the thought leadership and his vast experience and network in this industry. And yeah, he rang me up and said, "Hey, have you ever met Hagan Kappler?" And I said, "Actually, ironically, yes," because she had reached out. We were growing a franchise brand as Savvy Home, so we had a couple locations and had built out kind of a training and onboarding program from just our experience in the industry, and had the vision of could we standardize this model and scale it. And again, Gordon was a mentor and all that, and kind of how it could come together. And so it was just a full circle moment when, Hagan had reached out early and we got connected, and we're able to join forces and really come together underneath the Daisy brand to build a national model in the smart home space.
Every entrepreneur needs to do their diligence and call up the competition and get to know other CEOs. And so early on, that's what I did when I reached out to Gavin. So that's always my recommendation.
I love that. And the hot topic today all over the internet is entrepreneurship through acquisition. And Hagan, you've had all these acquisitions. You went from seed to Series C in 18 months. What do you attribute all this rapid growth to? Is it, hey, I have to acquire all this smaller competition to dominate this space? I mean, tell me about that strategy.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we noticed that there was this opportunity from a consumer perspective, and we knew that from our experience in home services, there was an opportunity to serve these customers. We felt like the gap here was the fact that there was no real high-end national brand that offered, an ongoing service. To build that, we felt that we needed to leverage the existing companies like Gavin's that were out there. And it turns out there's 20,000 of these companies, right? Really strong, long tenured owners who are just trying to do this on their own. They don't have the backbone of a franchise operation. There's not a lot of investment in this space. And it's a $30 billion market. And so we decided the path to build this company and start to scale was through both acquisition and franchising. We wanted to build out through acquisition so that we would have kind of a platform of owned companies. Think about it as petri dishes or test kitchens, so that as we were, experimenting with ideas around, marketing or a call center or supply chain, that we could try those out in our owned operations and then look our franchisees in the eye and say, okay, guys, if you're going to invest in this way, because we know that there's a clear ROI, because we've tested it, 18 different times. Do not do it this way. Don't do it the way you've always been doing it, because we looked and we know that there's a 10x return, when you do it another way. So in terms of your question, to get started, we actually decided to go a venture capital route. We wanted to have patient capital. A lot of franchise companies are choosing to be invested and owned by private equity companies, and I have run private equity backed franchise companies before. I felt for this space that we needed patient capital. My co-founder and I felt that, because it's just an untested, underinvested space, and we just wanted to do what's right by our owners and by our franchise owners, and not feel the pressure to return capital to investors anytime soon. And we just felt venture capital, some of these guys aren't even expecting any return, so there's flexibility and there's that patience there. We did need capital initially to make investments in companies like Gordon's, to make investments in a company in Norwalk, Connecticut, and we also made our first franchisee the same day we bought our first company, and that was here in Southern California, where our company is based. But half of the funding that we've raised has actually also gone to building out the infrastructure and support for our franchisees. Things like I just was talking about: a call center, marketing support, branding support, supply chain support, building out resources that will help both our owned branches and our technicians our salespeople and the owners and general managers of these businesses. Because in our space, we're not just buying these companies, we're not just starting brand new franchises, but we see a huge opportunity for guys who still have a lot of gas in the tank, who are running these businesses, to convert into our franchise organization, and just say, okay, forget all these consultants you're working with, forget these like tech stacks that you're kind of cobbling together, you know, let's join forces, let's build a network. Let's not just be a buying group, but let's, you know, consolidate resources, and let's help you to, you know, build value in your business, so that you actually have a clear succession plan while also improving your quality of life, because that was something else that we noticed. So we raised our initial Series A because we had to, because we needed to, you know, buy these companies and start to invest in our businesses. What happened actually was, for the Series B, we had another investor come to us and say that they were interested in investing, and my co-founder and I said, well, we don't really need the capital. We're in a path to be profitable, and that was always our plan. But another investor said, well, we would invest, but we would invest at a higher valuation. And so as we started to look at those attractive numbers, we looked at our pipeline of acquisitions and thought, well, you know, we could accelerate, you know, our strategy, accelerate our plan, and decided to move forward with that Series B. The same thing happened a few months later with our Series C. We also were able to bring in, you know, some new strategic investors who could help accelerate as we were, you know, getting more mature. So, you know, I think with entrepreneurship, starting new businesses, yeah, you never know. We thought that we were onto something that was really exciting, and we thought we could really help consumers. We found that we could also, you know, help these, you know, entrepreneurs and startups. And again, we always had this vision of being a national brand, getting to 20% market share, and we just found, wow, if we could get there that much faster, you know, let's go. And I think that's a great position to be in, when you don't need the capital, but can be thoughtful and strategic, you know, when you're offered, you know, some more capital.
You know, a lot of times I'll ask the question of, you know, so many people out there looking at businesses, either acquisitions, or maybe they think a franchise is right for them, and in most cases a franchise is right for first-time business owners. A lot of people get stuck, and I always tell them, look for value. What do you mean? I said, is there the support? Is there the call center? Is there the training? And
Yeah.
boy, you kind of nailed it, Hagan, just revealing all of the things that you've worked on and how you've invested. So I applaud you for that so early so early in your growth at this point. I mean, this is amazing. Your first franchisee is how old now, Gavin?
15 months, 16 months, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
February of 24.
And talk about that support and training that they went through initially.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with a really comprehensive onboarding that we've put together. I think a lot of our team, and we have 41, I think it's 41 now, existing team members that are dedicated to branch support, right? So they go through a very focused kind of 90-day, you know, personalized sales training, operations training, the system training, and just getting spun up on the lingo of this industry, right? On how to talk about an in-wall speaker versus an in-ceiling speaker, and an, you know, dome camera versus a bullet camera, and the specifics of, you know, home technology, because it is vast, but we really try to simplify that down and, you know, be conscious of drinking from the fire hose, right? Because it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. You know, so through that onboarding process, that we're really able to get them confident in learning about talking about these technology solutions. I think our model is unique because we have such a B to B to C approach when it comes to a customer acquisition. And so, you know, being competent to really talk to architects, talk to interior designers, talk to the general contractors, you know, who are on these projects, on these jobs. We get a lot of referrals through that network base, right? So we emphasize a ton of support with our marketing teams, our operations teams, you know, just to be there as an extension of their business as they're kind of getting the plane off of the ground.
And Gavin, who is that ideal franchisee? I know typically in a lot of franchises, you might see a school teacher, a lawyer, an engineer. I mean, are you pretty much the same? You're going to have people from all walks of life. What's required, really?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I mean, they got to be a cool person. Like, can we work together? Can we have a mindset of growth, a mindset of, build it together and collaborate? Because business ownership is hard, right? It's challenging, and like, how do we react together when we face those challenges? So first and foremost, like, we just want that right mindset. I think, two other things, in current existing integration owners, right, that love this technology, that love the solutions that they're providing for their clients, but maybe they just don't have the back end business necessary to grow and scale. So existing owners are huge for us. Of course, brand new people into this industry who have run teams before, have led sales pipelines, have grown as leaders and want to continue to grow, but sort of build for themselves. I think is an important and a great person for us to kind of work around. And then the third would be, that person who's maybe looking to come in with an acquisition approach, right? Who has some more capital to maybe deploy and diversify and wants to sort of jump into this smart home market that's, just a fascinating time to be involved with.
I would just add one more, which is we have a great opportunity for technicians, because what the team has built through this learning management system that we have, training, career paths, there's kind of an ultimate, it's not for everyone. Some technicians really love where they are and don't want this path necessarily, but there is a path to ultimately become an owner themselves. We've also seen great success from pairing someone either who's new to the industry or from the industry, but putting them next to a region or a territory of an existing owner, either owned location or franchise. That there is a lot of strength that comes from that, because the own location can help with leads. The sales team can train or can supplement the sales team. Same with technicians. They can help with site surveys, those types of things. So we've seen a real quick kind of ramp up from those greenfields, almost like a hub and spoke model. So again, as a startup, we can explore and experiment with these different types of solutions. So early days, I don't know, Gavin, but I think that's something that we're seeing as a potential real strong success for someone who's like, I don't know if I can do it alone. You don't have to. You can park yourself. First of all, you're in a franchise network, so you get to build on where you think you're weak. Others will say, wow, but you have all this great business experience and I don't have that. And so you can lean on each other just like any other franchise network.
Wonderful. So Gavin, income potential. Everybody listening wants to know about the numbers. What are you showing in your item 19?
Yeah, well, as we put in there, we've got a company-owned location. We've got our first franchise location with top line of average about $4.2 million. Average gross margin of about 60%. So, our average salesperson essentially can do about $1.5 million. So there's some attractive things, that we're working towards. Of course, nothing's guaranteed, right? But these are the successes that, we've seen and put on paper, and that we, continue to build around and prove out.
Yeah, those are some really strong numbers. And for those listening, this is a home-based business until such point that you probably have the biggest sales. First year and a half, you can maybe work out of your house?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't really require a retail build out. So our investment range in our item 7 is going to be between 135 and maybe 300K. Some vans, some light tools. It's very light inventory focused business, right? So you don't need a big location to house a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's how we're thinking about it.
Hagan, based on your background, I have to ask this question. So at what point did you think in the early days, all right, I know this is a cool idea, but when did that kind of flip in your brain where it went from cool idea to massive business opportunity?
Yeah, about 2 years ago, last two Junes ago, I had just left Threshold Brands, where I was CEO. Riverside backed that company, and I had, as I said, been involved in some home services roll-ups. I had gotten a call from, I think, 36 different private equity companies, all doing some version of a home services roll-up.
That's it.
And and we had been involved in a sale of a, home service master brands. We had sold to Roar Capital for a very attractive multiple. I was very aware of the, high sale prices to private equity firms in home services. And my co-founder, Deanne Pearson, and I had been talking about, the multiples are great, very attractive valuations, but what's interesting about this, like it's just not that exciting necessarily. Like, what am I going to do that's any different from what everybody else is doing? It's just kind of rolling these things up. And also, it wouldn't be really ours. It wouldn't be mine. I would, it's the private equity firm owns it, right? So I would follow their playbook, understandably so. And I'd be happy to help, but it's like, I've done that now. I've learned from that, and maybe it's time to break out, on my own. And so Dion said, well, this is here's an idea. 10 years back, we had been at Ingersoll Rand together and had been working on home automation ideas. At the time, we were looking at Internet of Things and how, digitizing HVAC and industrial and the home, how there was all this opportunity to build incredible value from connecting homes, connecting buildings, connecting factories. And so Dion said, well, whatever happened to that? And I made the same comment that I made at the beginning, like, yeah, I know. I mean, I've got 4 kids. I'm trying to work from home. I'm trying to do all this stuff, but like, nothing works. Like, my shades are all broken. They're supposed to go up and down with the, touch of a button. That doesn't work. The light bulbs are always out. And so as we dug in and realized how big this market was, that was pretty interesting. As we started to compile kind of a business case, as every entrepreneur should do, we started to recognize how big an opportunity this was. And then as we started to get on the road and talk to owners and talk to folks who had been spending their lifetimes building these businesses, we realized that there was help that they needed, right? So we've talked about the consumer opportunity, but we talked to these founders and owners of these businesses who, had great value to add to customers, but, weren't necessarily accountants, but were spending a lot of time with the drudgery of having to put their books together, and weren't necessarily HR professionals, but were spending a lot of time trying to find techs and spending a lot of time retaining techs and trying to worry about comp plans. And, I think the light bulb went off that, well, we've done this before. I know how to do M&A. We know how to put together, a franchise backbone. Here's an opportunity where we can do it right. We can build it, from the ground up. ServiceMaster is a wonderful organization, but it's a 92-year-old and Mary Meads is a 40-year-old brand. It sort of is what it is at this point. But now we can say, okay, how do we truly, take care of our technicians? And so that's when we started to say, okay, we can do right by the consumer, we can do right by our franchise owners. And then, of course, when we started talking to the investor community, and we saw all of this interest, I think that's when we realized, when our goal was 20% market share of a $30 billion market, you do the math, you realize, yeah, that's pretty big opportunity.
$6 billion, pretty good.
Yeah, I think the other area was, we do a lot of pilots, right? We do a lot of tests and experiments. Not everything works, right? And I can talk to you about some of the failures, but the one area that we've had a lot of success is our ongoing services. And that, we have a lot of experience in home services, and that's where a lot of the valuation multiples that I talked about, that's where a lot of those high multiples come from, is because there's a predictability in terms of the revenue. Home cleaning, every other week, customer's always going to pay. In this space, we knew that there would be a demand there, or we had a hypothesis there would be, and it turns out there is. But the amount that these customers are willing to pay, just because of the nature of either the client type, like the client segment, and also how expensive some of this equipment can be. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And so the potential of the service, Lance, I mean, initially I thought, wow, this is a huge opportunity. This is, $1 billion opportunity, which we're going to capture in probably 4 or 5 years. Now I'm convinced it's more multiple billions of opportunity overall, just from the ongoing services.
Such an amazing story. I love it. So Gavin, leave us with the final thought for aspiring entrepreneurs. And Hagan, I'm going to ask you the same question. So Gavin, you first.
Final thought. Well, I guess, look, as I mentioned already, I think business ownership is hard, and I've always tried to run my business career on, being in a room with people who have kind of been there before, right? Because success leaves clues, and if you can follow those nuggets and pick them up along the way, it kind of helps you avoid a lot of potholes. That's what franchising is really kind of about. And I think our leadership team that we've put together here at Daisy has seen a lot of things, has screwed a lot of stuff up. And through those failures, like builds growth and builds learnings, and is really doing a great job to pass that on, to our partners. And I just have a passion in that by helping people kind of get to those next stages and next goals in their life. By kind of, giving that knowledge and wisdom back. So, I think, it's hard. It's not going to be easy, but do it with people that you like building with.
Awesome. Hagan, final thought for aspiring entrepreneurs, a bit of advice based on your amazing history.
I would just say take the leap. There's probably something in your gut that's saying, should I or shouldn't I? And I would say listen to the should I. Because if you're passionate, if you believe in the idea, if the data is telling you it's a good idea, you'll certainly learn something. You may make a little money along the way, but as Gavin said, if you surround yourself with a really wonderful team, you're bound to be successful. And the longer you wait, that's the piece you'll regret. You'll regret waiting. You should take the leap.
Yeah, awesome. Great way to leave it. And for those in the audience, feel free to reach out to me about Daisy or any other great brand. The riches are in the niches, and Daisy's hot. Thank you, Gavin, and thank you, Miss Hagan, for being here. And look forward to talking and seeing you two live in person someday very soon.
That'd be great. Would love that.
Thanks,
My
Lance.
pleasure. Have a good day.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.